this part, if anything funny pops up here, just raise your hand. So this part is going to be more of the experiential part. What I've done is taken three of the meditations from the book. Let me get this little thing out of the way. Closer? Yeah. Yeah, I can just. Okay. All right, is that better? Okay. So my part of this is the meditations. I've taken 3 meditations out of the book. Remember I said yesterday that the book has 50 pages of meditations and exercises based on the teachings in the Secret Doctrine. So I'm going to bypass the introductory teachings since Pablo covered that this morning. Okay, look around this. What I did want to do first is go over, let's see if I can do this back. Okay, what I talked about yesterday, and I felt like I talked about it, but since you couldn't, I'm a visual learner, and since you so I felt like I said a lot of words and not a lot of visual aspects sunk in. So this is what I talked about when I mentioned going from the source to a unity, and the source is the absolute that Pablo mentioned. Does that help? Can I do this? I'll just do this way. To go from the source, which Pablo mentioned, the absolute, to a unity, to a duality, and then to a multiplicity. And that itself is the manifestation of the universe, of man, of our thoughts. And then the meditation is to reverse that. And these are the personal aspects of it. So this is the source, the unity, the duality, the multiplicity in the cosmos, and then in man we call it Atman, Buddhi, Manas, and the personality. And so the idea is we can go from the source to the multiplicity, or go backwards from the personality to Atman and go through each of these stages. I don't know if I made it clear or more muddy.
We talk about what those stages are.
We do. You do in one of the other ones. Okay, great. So now our part is the meditative inquiry and the fundamental propositions. Remember the 4 parts that we talked about yesterday. Listening with a silent mind, respond from the heart instead of react, speak with purpose and awareness, and tap into the substratum. So basically, the idea is to listen intently, mindfully, and without any past conditionings. To respond from a place of wisdom. To speak lean and meaningful. And in this order, or with all these, what we will do then is to tap into that substratum where our insights come from. And then as a reminder too, these are not just steps. I take the first step, I take the second step. They're integrated, and mastering one exponentially builds on the others. But if you need a place to start, listening with a silent mind is a good starting point. And I wanted to mention, if there are any lodges, I will get my notes to treat, and then he can send that out to you. And if there's any lodges, I'm happy to meet with the lodges and go over this, although it's kind of self-explanatory, and my fear of you doing it better.
You can demonstrate.
Yes. Okay. So this is the first meditation. This is meditation 3 on page 249 of the book. And the introductory quote is, "The supreme all, the ever invisible spirit of nature, changeless and eternal, can have no attributes. Absoluteness very naturally precluding any idea of the finite or conditioned from being connected with it." So now what I'd like you to do is take a deep breath, get comfortable in a meditative position. Like I said, this whole thing that I'm going to read is in the book on page 249. So, from these definitions, how would you describe the absolute? In this instant, pinpoint it to one idea that you can put a word to. However, attributing any quality to it would imply that it does not have other incompatible qualities. So if we say good, that means it's not bad. If we say blue, it means it's not red. So nothing that exists can be outside of the absolute reality. Can you say that the absolute reality is good? Saying that the absolute has the attribute of goodness would imply that badness is outside of it. Does this mean then that the absolute reality is bad as well as good? Can you say the absolute reality is... Would you say that the absolute reality is pure consciousness? If it is pure consciousness, this would imply that matter is outside this reality. Does this mean that the absolute is consciousness and matter at the same time? In our limited mind, the absolute reality can be thought of as the synthesis of everything that we see on the planes of duality, good and bad, consciousness and matter, and so forth. It is like the zero containing all positive and negative numbers, while at the same time not being any of them. Now try to conceive the absolute reality without assigning to it any attributes, characteristics, or descriptions. Perhaps you can think of it as being space. Everything that exists is contained within it, in an undifferentiated state. Does the absolute reality evolve? The absolute cannot be the end product of any process. Being timeless, it cannot be affected by anything within time, such as beginning or an end, increase or decrease, evolution or decline. Such dichotomies can only be applied to things that have form and function, but not to that which is absolute. Could we say that the absolute reality is perfect? Perhaps, but only figuratively. While we can say that an orange is perfect in comparison to other oranges, there is no possibility of comparison of the absolute reality, which has no attributes with anything else. Everything we know is limited and partial. It is this, but not that. It is here and not there. But we know what we know is relative, bigger than, faster than, better than something else. But none of this applies to the absolute reality, which is the negation of all limitation and all conditioning. For this, it is most often described through the use of negatives. Not this and not that. However, the absolute is not far away or irrelevant to us. It is our innermost foundation, and it is more sacred than any deity. In fact, this reality is what makes sacred anything that is sacred. But then everything is sacred because everything is an expression of this reality. The absolute seems a void because it is the end of the relative mind, which labels, compares, and separates. At this time, move beyond the relative mind and dwell in the dark and empty space of no thought, in silent presence. When you're ready, come back. Okay, so that was just a little guided meditation through what we think the absolute is to what it's not, in trying to dwell in that unknown space. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to share? I know it was quick. I'm not the best guider of meditation. So this would be the idea of the meditations in the book, is to read through them and then sit at the end and dwell in all those kind of concepts. We have a question over here, and if you wait for our kind gentleman.
So it's absolute like the Tao, nothingness in the void, like unexplainable.
Yes, I would say in the Tao. Yes, I would say that it's the same. There's other names for it in other traditions.
Yeah, but Lao Tzu says that which can be named is not the Tao. So is this also that which can be described is not really the absolute.
Yes, we have a question.
That's where I came to. No answer.
No.
And then no answer was qualified, but that can't be correct either, because then there's an answer. And so everything I came to, I found the duality of the place that I was at. So I just appealed to help and had a whole string of the same sort of thing.
Perfect, because I don't think our mind could do anything but that.
No, but it was fun.
Yes. So that was one of the things I talked about yesterday. What you noticed was the workings of the lower mind, of the concrete mind that was looking for answers. And obviously, I would be a really good guider of meditation if you got to the place of darkness and silence. But there's the distinction, and that was one of the aims of the talk last night, was to be able to distinguish between the lower mind's working and the higher mind's working. So once you get to that empty space, that darkness, that's the pregnant silence, instead of the searching for answers and thinking I did it wrong. Anything else? Pablo, did you have? Wait, okay, either wait for the.
Yeah.
We want him to use it, make his money.
Yeah. The idea with these meditations is that it's exactly that when we try earnestly to grasp these things with the mind, and we see the inability of the mind, and we recognize, no, this cannot be, oh, then this, and then you recognize, no, this cannot be. When we do it earnestly, at some point the mind just gives up, and then there is silence. But the mind gives up because it sees the limitation, and then the mind gets quiet. It's not that you are trying to quiet the mind and say, oh, you cannot get it, so just stay quiet. When you actually see the mind cannot get it, then there is this spontaneous silence, and you can dwell there. That's the idea with all the meditations.
For me,
Wait.
I dwell with the infinity sign, and I wash myself in infinity. And in that space, then these questions come, and the awareness that there is no answer without a qualification, therefore that is not the answer. Then I go back to the infinity and dwell within that place, and then the thoughts come. So for me, it's comforting in infinity, because I know that is just infinite.
So then I would challenge you, because that's what it is. It's that comfortable place where our mind wants to go. You know, we choose something where our mind wants to go because it's familiar with that. What this is challenging you to do, or the secret doctrine in general, is challenging to bring your mind to a place that is uncomfortable, that is unknowing, to grasp the ideas of the absolute is an uncomfortable place. So if we notice where our mind goes, then we can kind of start discerning, you know, oh, this is my concrete mind trying to find comfort. And then eventually, if your concrete mind gets uncomfortable enough, like Pablo said, it will tend to kind of make a shift. That's that critical mass that I talked about, and the grace coming down.
Yeah, I think that these two things are a good example, because we can create a concept of everything, and there are concepts that are satisfying, you know, and the concept of eternal or infinite. So then, if our minds is comfortable with that, then we can start working on that. Not just the concept of infinite, but try to picture and understand what infinite means, and infinite, and visualize something going on for how long, forever. Now, what can be behind the infinite? There cannot. If you start working on that, at some point the mind says, "This is mind blowing. I just can't conceive it," and then the silence comes. Or you can do the same with eternal. The absolute is eternal. Wait, what does it mean? It was there forever, so it didn't come out of anything. How can something be there forever without having an origin? And if you really meditate on these things, the mind genuinely gives up. The lower mind gives up, and then you dwell in that silence, which many times, as Michelle said, there is a tension there, but it's a tension that is, you know, polarizing the mind so that something may come from above.
Okay, we'll go on to the next one.
May I have a comment? I think one of the comment I would have is the infinity not go just above, but also below as well. So if you imagine something as tiny as your one cell within your body, imagine the consciousness of that one cell at that microcosm level. That consciousness cannot understand the consciousness of a human being like myself. I have a consciousness at my level is different than at the level of the individual cell. The individual cell itself does not have the understanding of the consciousness of me. And my consciousness does not have the understanding of a solar logos, for example. So infinity go above as well as below. So the absolute is all of that, essentially.
Thank you.
I just want to ask. So yesterday, from your talk, you said secret doctrine can serve as an instrument for Nani yoga. Some of these practices that the exercise we just went through, apart from maybe giving us a sense of life or what the truth is, similar to the Zen Buddhism, whereby they give you a koan, let's say, what's the sound of one hand clapping, and then you struggle with it forever until you come to some realization. So how are this approach different from Zen?
I'm
Yeah, we
going to
can talk-
interrupt,
yeah,
yeah,
we-
and
we
let
can
me get
talk-
through my part, and then I'll try to leave time at the end.
In the book I mentioned that the approach is similar. They are trying to do the same thing, but in little different ways. Yeah, let us continue. Then we can talk later.
Okay, so that was the first fundamental proposition. This is a meditation on the second fundamental proposition, and it's meditation 5 in the book. The divine spiritual I is alone, eternal, and the same throughout all births, whereas the personalities it informs in succession are evanescent, changing like the shadows of a kaleidoscope series of forms in a magic lantern. So before we even go into the meditation, just reading this quote and one of the exercises, general exercises that's given in the book, is to take this quote and not just read it and say, okay, I get the general idea, but to take the quotes by themselves and go word by word. And divine spiritual I, okay? How is that different from the personality? Okay, how does that get informed? All right, so that is one way to use the secret doctrine or the quotes in the book. So we typically regard our life as limited to the lifespan of our body. Our sense of mortality creates a sense of hurry and anxiety because we feel that we have insufficient time to accomplish our various goals. We may experience feelings of regret in areas where we have failed. A sense of frustration arises when confronting the limitations that we face in this life. All such feelings are created by the lack of awareness of our true nature. And Pablo mentioned this last night, to know who we truly are, who I am beyond Michelle, okay? Who I really am deep down inside. And that takes some self-reflecting, self-inquiry, self-analyzing. So now we're going to take a moment. I'm going to go through a few statements to guide you through this meditation. Think of yourself as an immortal soul, which transcends this particular life, this body, and this personality. You have had many lives before, and there will be many more in the future. On any given day, you may be predominantly happy, sad, angry, or at peace. But a single day does not represent the totality of your existence. Consider each lifetime and its main features, possibilities, and limitations as being just one day in your experience as a soul. Now take a minute or so to imagine yourself experience life from each of the following perspectives. As a parent, as a professional without children, as a recluse or monk living in quiet isolation. As a person active in society, enjoying worldly pleasures and sorrows. As someone who is wealthy and poor. Realize that you have lived lives belonging to different ethnicities, speaking different languages, and living on different continents, in different cultures. Think about the fact that you have been born in different types of environments, some that offered many opportunities, while others held mainly limitations and constraints. In each of them, you have been both happy and sad. You have gained and lost. Even though you may not remember an experience which occurred in a previous incarnation, you did experience it, just as you experienced a day 10 years ago, of which you remember little or nothing. Realize that your current gender, social position, circle of friends, family, health, ethnicity, country of birth, education, obligations, profession, and so forth are not causing you to miss out on things. They are simply the experiences needed during this day of your journey as a soul. Think that your present experience, along with its possibilities and its limitations, is specifically designed to help you grow and realize your true nature. The opportunities that don't come in this lifetime will present themselves to you in future ones. What you are not able to accomplish in this day of the soul will be fulfilled in another one. All you must do right now is the best that you can in the present situation. Whatever your situation may be in the present moment, remember that you, as a soul, are eternal, beyond this moment in time. Rest in the awareness of being immortal and embrace your current life with serenity and confidence. When you're ready, come on back. I like this meditation because it reminds me I wouldn't judge my whole life as a mom, as a parent, on one bad day that I had with one of my children. And I'm noticing that now as I'm getting older, and I really think it's because as I say, I'm in the last trimester of my life, that I can see where the karmic effects or the critical mass is now coming to fruition. I can see that, my kids are going to be okay. Or, all that struggle I had trying to make this is now coming through. So I think for me, I feel that urgency, and I think that's why I talk so fast or I move so fast, because I think, oh my gosh, I got to get all this done. But as Hodson says, when we trust and we're consistently doing something towards our goal each day, that is where our work lies. That is pretty much all we can do. Okay? And it's that lack of trust or lack of awareness that tends to create worry and anxiety. Are there any comments? Okay, wait for the microphone.
I was just going to ask if you could repeat that Hodson quote one more time.
Oh, okay. I will look it up because it was in last night's talk, and I'll get it to you. Because all I remember is trust and doing what you need to do on a consistent daily basis. So trust and consistency.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, we'll go on to the last one. And this last one is on the third fundamental proposition based on the obligatory pilgrimage. So the little quote here is just, the universe is worked and guided from within outwards. There is design in the action of the seemingly blindest forces. The whole order of nature evinces a progressive march toward a higher life. So right here in itself, you can work on the quote, or in the book, there's a guided meditation. So it is not uncommon to think that one could be more spiritual if circumstances were only different. Perhaps if there was more time to study or practice, or that I need a better opportunity to live in an environment more conducive to spirituality. Better progress would be made. I can tell you personally from living at the national headquarters in Wheaton and now living in Crotona, so over I think 15 years I've been in intentional communities. I feel like I've done less spiritual work than before I moved there. I had more time to study. But I'm seeing now that every act that I do, I thought if I was paid to be a speaker, I could be more spiritual. Or if I could make money, giving classes or organizing programs, that would be more spiritual. And I'm finding that my time as the guest house manager where I cleaned was actually working on more weeding out more of the seeds that need to be weeding out than any study that I've done. So I can really see the contrast in this thinking. So this, however, is a misplaced idea. It is important to understand that everything that happens to you has the purpose of leading you toward a higher life. From an evolutionary perspective, you are placed into the best possible set of circumstances necessary for your development, some of which may be more pleasant than others. And I think what I tend to think, is that I should be acquiring stuff. So I should be acquiring more knowledge. I should be acquiring the skills to be a better meditator. Where a lot of our life might be to work on those deprivations that I talked about, to deprive the personality of things that are not conducive to the higher self. So from an evolutionary perspective, you are placed in the best possible circumstances necessary for this development. But remember that the feelings of pleasure and pain make little difference when it comes to the growth of the soul. Daily life as a spiritual training, normally and often unconsciously, we judge situations from the standpoint of whether or not they bring gratification or satisfaction. And that can be a big hindrance when we think that this feels good, so this is good for me. This feels bad, so it must be bad for me. And when we take the time to look at our daily situations and see the most growth that we do is in those struggles or in those hard times. When it's good, we tend to get complacent and comfortable. And why would I want to move out of this? But when we struggle, we take the energy to try and make change. And so if we can stop and think and use those times of struggle for times of growth and think of it that way, it doesn't make it any less painful, but at least for my mind, it makes it more useful and more purposeful. So here we go with the meditation. For a few minutes at the beginning of each day, ponder the fact that there is a deeper purpose in life, something more than merely enjoying, accumulating, or accomplishing personal goals. Although all of these things are a part of life, as you incarnate and go through these experiences, be mindful they are present to help you realize your immortal nature. Use this as your state of mind throughout the day. Remind yourself that you are placed in exactly the situation and environments that will help you take the next step in the evolutionary journey. Try to be aware whenever you judge things, depending on whether they are pleasant or not. Set your intention to interpret everything that comes your way as your training, making choices that will move you in the direction of your higher nature. Do not shy away from unpleasant situations, but embrace them, confident that they will help you grow. I'm going to go through the next one, which is on worry and fear. When you are worried about something, remind yourself that we are eternal, spiritual entities. Think that no matter what happens, each situation only affects the transitory aspect in you, which will eventually be forgotten. Whatever happens, all will be well. Remember that there is a reason for all things that come your way. It is important to continually remind yourself that after you have done your best in any given situation, whatever the outcome, be it success or failure, it was meant to happen. Find in yourself the ability to rest in confidence that the circumstances that you go through in life, be they pleasant or unpleasant, are intended to bring you closer to the realization of your divine nature. And then based on this realization, go through your day with a sense of confidence, patience, acceptance, and even gratitude, knowing that life is helping you grow spiritually. When you're ready, come on back. Now this last sentence that I read here, based on this realization, go through your day with gratitude. that's a little tough for me to do in the moment. There's no way when I'm going through a struggle that my brain can even process the word gratitude. So some of these ideals, depending on your personality, is to endurance. For me, the catchword is endurance. If I endure these, I will find the gratitude. If I endure these, I will find the lesson struggle. It doesn't always happen right in the moment. There, my body's struggling. Okay. All right. So I think that's all I have. Are there any takeaways, comments, or questions? We whipped through these kind of fast. Wait for the mic.
Just that the idea of this is to, as we study all these concepts, the idea is to engage in these kind of things, meditations or exercises for daily life, so that they become more than just concepts. We can read about reincarnation, but the meditation that Michelle did with the eternal eye, etc., actually doing that exercise, visualization, meditation, helps us understand this and feel this truth more closely. So these are examples.
Right. So, and at first, it may just feel like I'm reading something, I'm understanding it conceptually, and the tendency may be to give up. I'm not doing it right. But this is where the trust in the teachings and the consistency of doing this daily, and because all you're trying to do is kind of hijack that the lower mind into relinquishing control is what you're doing, and it just needs to be reminded that it's okay. This is part of life. The secret doctrine says that everything comes from a unity. I am that universal oversoul. That there are cycles. There are up cycles and there are down cycles, and that this is an obligatory pilgrimage. This is the pilgrimage that our monad or our divine spark goes through on a regular basis. This is what everybody's monad goes through. Lifetime is what I meant by regular basis. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to just comment on the last slide, that the universe is worked and guided from within outwards. And this universe is not just the universe out there, but the universe inside us.
Right. Oh.
The universe, the continents, countries, these are all guided and worked from within. So the question would be then, even in our own lives, the guidance has got to come from within. Another question would be, what then is the work of politicians? Do they think they are doing something? I mean, the actions they take, are they just picking up the impulses that are coming out from within to work on? So anyway, I mean, it's so powerful that I thought it's worth mentioning, because some people think that the universe is work from outside, so not really work from.
Right. So I would say politicians in themselves are kind of a different category, except that so the universe itself comes from, we could say, emanates from the inner planes to the outer. So no matter what we get from the outer, can only work so far. So I'm trying to think what you said first was what I think, this is what I want to say. All right, so we are, the stage of evolution that we are now is of the developing of the mind. So it's what has happened, or what we can see is everybody who is in charge or who is deemed as successful has a very good working mind. It works where it can think fast, it can think deep, and it can manipulate, which is kind of beyond, all right, the thought of, or it's the working of the lower nature that is in charge of the higher nature, or in higher our personality. So when we have awareness, if the politicians had awareness, then they would be able to go inward, right? That's what we're doing here with these processes. We're going inward and going to the place of wholeness, and going to the place of where there is peace and selflessness. When we stay outwards, then we are attracted to the lower nature, because the lower nature is ruled by desires. That would be, I would say, the majority of humanity is being ruled by their desires, or ruled by their lower nature. Our work as theosophists is to make a change in that and be ruled by the spiritual, and the spiritual is inner. So I don't know if I answered the politician question. I just think there's a lack of awareness there, or there's a lack of awareness of this, but this works. I mean, it's true. There's a lack of awareness there, and there's not any connection with the higher nature. So it's not working from a place of wholeness. It's working from, this is my personality, wants to be the best, wants to be the richest, wants to be the smartest. And sometimes that works for our benefit, but other times now we're seeing that it's working in a more selfish nature.
Yeah, I know, for example, in Argentina, in the early 20th century, we had politicians that were members of the society. There were many politicians that were really idealistic. We have streets named after politicians that were members of the society. And I'm sure that, with the founding fathers, and I'm sure there was that all over the world. And today it seems that most politicians are just interested in the lower thing. But again, remember, politicians are also an expression of the whole of humanity, even though you may not agree with this or that. They are really the expression of where we are at as humanity as a whole. And we are going through cycles. And when if the current direction is going in the wrong direction, it will fail. And then that's where we are going. When we realize this doesn't work, that's where we start looking at what works then. And that's how we grow. So this is part of the cycles and the growth. And of course, if we were all wise, we could avoid these things. But we are not as humanity, and this is what we need to grow.
And one of the things too, if we understand the nature of thought forms, and what we create when we think, we can see that what the most of humanity is thinking at this time, and then this kind of doubles down on the importance of our work. What thought forms are we creating? What's coming out from inside of us to make a shift in humanity today? So that's kind of our work in order to create a new thought form.
Surprising. On a personal note, I have found that when I spend time focusing or dwelling on the external, what I invariably end up with is an awareness about the internal. And when I focus on the internal and do the work and the meditation and stuff like that on the internal, I invariably come out with insights on the external. So if anybody has any comments or experience about that, you can sort of tap on my shoulder after this, because I'd love to hear it. Second.
I agree, that's what happens.
Yep. And I don't know if that's because of the elements of our dual nature and our realities, and those are polarities, and that's what comes from it.
Yeah, as Krishnamurti said, the external and internal separation is not real, because the external is a reflection and the external, so there is a connection there. But the problem is when a person lives only on one of the poles, then that creates a balance.
Don't see how that's even possible.
Yeah, you would think, but you can see it in some.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay.
Does it also mean that basically we are all just instruments of the one, just bringing things out?
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, before we break for lunch, I'd like to introduce Dave from National. You have a few words to introduce. So I'm going to hand the mic over to him.
Thank you, and hello. It's so nice to see all of you, and I look forward to meeting all of you. It is a real pleasure. This was just really terrific this morning. Thank you, just terrific. I'm only 2.5 years into my theosophically informed life, having joined the national staff about 2.5 years ago. And so it's been a wonderful journey, and this morning is very affirming. So it's just terrific. So my job with the Theosophical Society in America is twofold. One is relationship building. So actually, there's so much happening all across the country and the world, of course. And so we sit in Wheaton and we can only know so much. So part of my job is to do what I can to be able to understand what is happening around the country and what is on the minds of people who are members and donors and that sort of thing. So that's why I'm here. And I was in North Carolina last year, and so that's part of my job, getting to know people. The other is fundraising. And so to that end, I was hired because the Theosophical Society in America needed it. They took a look carefully and realized that the path was not sustainable given a couple of things, particularly that the Kern family, which had been so important, continues to be important for so long. When Mr. Kern passed away, he used to put a little thumb on the scale of how much that foundation would give on an annual basis. And so instead of 5%, it might be 7 or 8. And 5% versus 8% of a significant chunk of money is a lot of money. So when Mr. Kern passed away, there was less for the Theosophical Society every year. And so I was brought on, and I'm very glad to have been a part of it. It was to secure the present and to secure the future. And so to that end, I've been at it about 2.5 years, and it's going well, thanks to the many of you who are contributing. So we focus on the annual fund. I would imagine you all got letters about our campus recently or will soon. But we also talk about the future, and gratefully we have had more than 50 people now make us aware that the Theosophical Society is in their estate plans. And that's very valuable for us to know that we'll be here for seekers. Frankly, I guess we'll probably be here for ourselves by thinking about giving in the estates. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to greet all of you. I promise I won't come on too strong, but you also know my purpose, and I'm happy to visit with any of you while I'm here through the rest of the day. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just not really that familiar with how the Theosophical Society funds itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that since the pandemic, when the classes have gone online, I mean, I've been able to take things that I never dreamed I'd be able to do. And so I was just kind of wondering, and you don't have to do it right now, but at some point, could you give like I just don't know how it works, the funding works.
Yeah. Yeah. So briefly, I would say that there is the Kern Foundation, which routinely gives, I would say it's roughly, my math might be a little bit off, about 25% of our funding. There's also a Theosophical Investment Trust, which represents about another quarter. And then we have membership dues, which are substantial, right? We have these programs, right? And so people often pay fees for a lot of our programs. So there's income, sort of earned income, if you will.
YouTube.
And then contributions, right? And so what's lovely about that is that it's a diverse pool of sources, right? But we, I would say that we got far too reliant on sort of legacy gifts from a couple of families. And so the good news is that the situation's improving. Just this idea of someone mentioned that, yes, John, that we're vessels, right? I'm proud that I've been useful and pleased and gratified that I've been useful to the Theosophical Society. And so just in a couple of 2.5 years, we're in better shape than we're in, than when we were in, but we still have a ways to go. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That was
okay. Okay. So again, yeah, I think the biggest element is that when I was hired by the Theosophical Society, Barbara Hebert says hello, by the way, and if you know Barbara Hebert, she also sends her love, and so when oh gosh, I kind of lost track there, but yeah, so things are improving. Things are improving, and if you have it. If you're in a position to consider giving, and it moves you and brings you joy to think about giving, encourage you to do it. Mm-hmm.
Just a comment. I mean, I think my membership 3 years or so at a time, so I need to renew mine. But I mean, one thing that I noticed is that it might help is to modernize how to pay the membership. Maybe make it PayPal. PayPal is really convenient. Some other ways to do it just easier.
Yes.
You know, because I haven't renewed mine and I got the letter, and I just get this with other things because I have to read or send a check.
Yes.
And we don't do checks anymore.
Yes.
So I think we need to modernize to make it easier for people. That it's easier from your phone.
Yes.
To renew or make a donation if you want.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. And we're working on that. And you're absolutely right. Our last annual fund mailer, maybe some of you have gotten it, actually had a QR code on the mailing. It's like, okay, big. And we made it easier.
That's what it's been.
Yes.
I mean, distracted with so many things that are going on.
Yes.
I just haven't done it, but if I had it easy access, I will do it right away.
That's right. Yes. And the pandemic, I just wanted to add to, yes, it's unbelievable, right? And so, again, I'm learning a lot about the Theosophical Society, but what had been very dependent on geography no longer is. And so our programs that you're able to access, and now particularly check out our YouTube channel, 13 million people have taken in our programs on the YouTube channel, 13 million users, if you will. And so the ability to do the outreach is quite remarkable. And so it's an interesting time at the Theosophical Society to be at this inflection point, right?
Please tell John when you get back home that I appreciate hosting into lecture.
I will.
Last Thursday was Pablo, others, and they are quite informed.
Yeah, good. I will be sure to do that.
Because it's not restricted of just in going all over.
All over the world. It's amazing. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say that there are opportunities to sponsor our Thursday lectures for $1,000. And people actually enjoy doing it when there's a particular topic that's particularly motivating or a particular speaker. And so that's one way we're starting to try to provide new and different opportunities for people to support us. And Barbara wanted me to make sure to mention that the Eugene Jennings program that is coming up this coming weekend. It's a deep study opportunity over a couple of days, and Dr. Jennings is operating at like a really high level. Kind of like that. Oh, it is beautiful, beautiful. I don't want to take too much time. But please come see me if you'd like, and I apologize if I haven't had the opportunity to introduce myself yet, but it's nice to be here.
You should take time, it's important.
Thank you, Eugene. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, all right.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to have a short break for the lunch, actually 2 hours for lunch until we resume at 2. Right. So enjoy. Thank you. All right, we have plenty of food over here.